Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. This is an episode promised from a couple days ago with my conversation with Darren Rovell of Collect.com, CLLCT. He had done a lot of homework about the Michael Jordan XRC, and by now, if you have wanted to, hopefully you had a chance to read his article. I don't agree 100%, but I certainly appreciate and applaud his hard work. He really dug in, and he got some information that was new to me, but then I provided him some information that was new to him as well. Hopefully we're all trying to move the ball forward into better understanding of the history of our hobby and what things really mean and how things work. So I'm not going to go back over what I said in the episode 2 days ago. I now have read his article, and perhaps you have too. Again, I recommend it. He breaks a lot of stories. This is not like a breaking story as much as digging deep in the past. It's presented with a headline, Move Over 86 Fleer, another Michael Jordan rookie is now most valuable. Subtitled, Maligned by a Counterfeiting Scandal and Hurt by a Beckett Classification. The 1984-85 Michael Jordan star number 101 is back on top. So I want to respond to that. I'm just going to have a little stream of consciousness based on his article. I obviously disagree that the Michael Jordan was hurt by a Beckett classification. He's speaking about the XRC, the infamous XRC, which is certainly misunderstood by a lot of people. So I'll try to unpack that a little bit here in light of what I've already said, as well as in light of what he has said. Just breaking that down is that I don't believe it was a mistake to call the Michael Jordan an XRC. It was very clearly an extended rookie in the same definition of how the baseball sets were treated. And I might point out, when something is an XRC, it's a huge misconception that that's a pejorative. That means it's worse. In fact, in almost every example, the XRC is lower production, earlier, and more desirable. And I pointed out a number of examples, and it doesn't take very far to dig to see that when a card is in a lower production and earlier release and unusual kind of release that's not broad, you have opportunity for value there. He correctly noted that right at the beginning, from looking at dealer activity and collector activity back in 1990 now, the XRC Jordan was pretty much always higher priced. It was valued higher. The XRC was understood from the beginning that it was a lot less, regardless of pop reports, just re-emphasized. Star Company is much, much lower production. And then he notes that in 1997, Star Company took a hit. They didn't take a hit from me. They took a hit from their reputation. There were lawsuits, and Darren brings that out. But that is really what hurt Star Company the most. So much so that our company was unwilling to grade those initially. And later, with the help of Steve Taft, was determined that, no, we could grade the regular sets, which included the Jordan. And that went along merrily. And then when Nat Turner came in, he said, why aren't we grading? The reason PSA had not been grading, as I said, they've had a guarantee. And there were certainly a lot of questionable star releases. Steve Taft insists it didn't involve the Jordan 101 XRC. But in 97, we didn't know that. All we knew was that Star's viability and credibility was being seriously questioned. And so even when something is earlier produced and lower production quantities, actually lower production values too, that scared off some of the demand. And then the 86-87 Fleer had its day, had its long day, had a long season in the sun. And in fact, one of the things we didn't bring up is that I had 4 choices back in the beginning of the basketball magazine. I could have ignored the Star Company sets because they weren't mainstream in the same way. That would have been a bad decision. So I disregarded that. I could have listed them in the various price guides without an XRC, without anything, as I would have treated a regional or a specialty set. That also I did not think was a fair or a good idea, because there were still some in those days that say, hey, this is Michael Jordan's first fully licensed card, even though it was distributed in that strange way. So I had a choice of either making it an RC or an XRC. I think XRC was very clear at the time, and I believe those reasons still hold true. Now, if you put on your Back to the Future hat and realize in a parallel universe, and it wasn't just me, I think this was the prevailing sentiment at the time, okay, and understanding that XRC meant there's something going on there, it's still a rookie card, but not universally recognized. If it would have been an RC, then what happens to all those 86, 87 Fleers? When the decision was made to make the Michael Jordan 101, the XRC, in effect, at the same time, defined the 86, 87 cards as the true rookies, as the fully recognized rookies, including there are XRCs out there for some of these guys, some of the players that had regular Star Company issue sets and cards closer to their rookie year, I'll admit that. But think of all the excitement in the hobby for 86, 87. If that's a third-year Jordan card, turning back the clock to 86, 87, it wasn't DOA, but the 86, 87 Fleer had very little pulse in the early days. They were being remaindered. They didn't sell through. Everything was very cheap. Okay. Now, at that point, the Star Company was still going like it was going. Star Company took a hit in 97 when they had the legal issues, and that came to light. But with the 86, 87 Fleer being designated as RCs, and I originally did an RC asterisk, but the asterisk was dropped at some point, but they were more recognized as the rookie card. That set, I won't say it carried the hobby, but a lot of the headlines in the COVID days were that particular Michael Jordan, because there's enough action on that with much higher production quantities and unopened boxes and cases that surfaced. That doesn't happen, guys. If the Star Company card is an RC, then the 86, 87 Fleer is nothing. They're just a bunch of third or fourth year cards. Be careful what you wish for. Again, I don't think it was hurt by classification. The back on top is basically mainly related, I think, to PSA deciding to jump back in and grade. And that's brought all these people that were quietly assembling their Star Company collections. When PSA came in, that was even greater legitimization of the Star Company cards. And then all of a sudden you've seen another big run up now. So yes, there has been a run up now, but I think it had to do a lot with that. So if the Star Company has been beaten down in the last 27 years, it's potentially a self-inflicted wound. There were some things going on. I still maintain they didn't run a very tight ship. So whether it was malicious or just suspicious things were happening that did not drive consumer confidence. Who would want to buy an expensive card if they thought the original negatives or plates were still out there and they could be easily reprinted from the exact printing plates? I've heard that mentioned. That's extremely scary, unlikely to happen with a major card company, but in no way was Star Company treated or considered a major card company. XRCs, I'm the one that thought up the initials and all that, but it was that I had to do something because it was just getting to be very chaotic and people didn't understand. But it's not that I made it up in a dream or something. This was pulling together what people were saying and giving words to their concerns. So it wasn't me in my ivory tower as much as it was me circulating around, talking to people. And I never heard anybody bring an XRC up. It's something that I considered would allow for, as Brian Gray did, that if something's altered or not altered, you could have two grading scales. There's almost two kinds of rookies. There's the rookies that come out in the normal way, RCs, and then there's the XRCs that come out and you can have both. And the market determines whether it's better or not. And I didn't do that. All I had to try and do is report prices. But if you are reporting prices, you can see that the 86, 87 just got up so high, and then people looked at the pop reports, and then they looked at the pop reports of PSA. Oh, wait, they couldn't do that because PSA wasn't grading. But when PSA did start grading, there were a bunch of cards that came over, and some crossed over from BGS. But even when you add all that up, it's a small fraction of what the 86, 87 Fleer is. Now, in the 27 years since 97, you're saying, you know what? I haven't seen this card being reprinted. The pop reports have increased, but there's no great increase there. Again, you ought to read the article. It's part of hobby history, but XRC is part of hobby history too. Like I said, the criticism has to come with, if you're not going to do that, what are you going to do? And if you're going to call the 84, 85 Star Company the rookie card, the true rookie card back in 1990, at the time, that would have been a mistake. And it still would be a mistake because it's hard to undo hobby history. And so that's part of why I'm doing a podcast, is to try to get hobby history out there, because history repeats itself if you're not aware. Thanks, Darren. He got more out of Robert Levin than I ever got to hear some of what was going on there. And so I really appreciated that. Don't agree with the title of the article or the subtitle, but I really appreciate Darren's hard work to get this out there. And the hobby loves a controversy. The hobby loves conspiracies, but I don't think there's any conspiracy here other than the changing opinions of the masses based on shifting pop reports and perceptions of where things are. It helps to have been there because that wasn't the case when those things were happening. Thanks, listeners. I'll be back in a couple of days. I promise to talk about something else. In the meantime, check out collect.com, Darren's new venture. Looking forward to staying up on what's going on through his in-depth reporting. So that's it. Thanks again. Bye-bye.